Welcome, everyone. My name is Joseph Coleman, and welcome to Week 2 Office Hours. How you doing, Lance?
I'm doing great. Still very cold here. We had just south of me 6 inches of snow today.
Wow, yeah, we're a little overcast, but not that cold. Bob is out in the desert driving around today, so it's me and Lance. We have a couple poll questions that we can get into. One question, and we'll go through Week 2 and 3. So let's start with the poll questions, Mike. No, it's not. How about that? All right, what is the most common loan authorization change request that you see on your SBA loans?
Well, and I asked this question, I just received an authorization on an SBA loan that I'm doing today. And I actually think I'm going to be able to close it exactly as the authorization states, but that's out of the norm for most. You always will find errors in things like names and addresses. One of the common areas is SBA will indicate an appraised value. Your appraisal doesn't come in exactly at the same value, or you have a lien position that's different. But just curious, and use of proceeds, which, with our group, that's the most common one. Certainly it's not unusual to get to the closing or get close to closing your loan, and you find that a piece of equipment is less expensive than originally thought, or maybe it's more expensive, or something costs different, and you change those use of proceeds. The important thing is just to make sure that those loan authorization change requests prior to the final disbursement are submitted for approval, unless it's a delegated loan,
Right.
PLP or Express.
Do you have a credit memo at your bank that is specific to your SBA loans?
Well, and I asked this question because we're going through that process right now. I joined the bank about 6 months ago. We suddenly, as a result of me joining the bank, became a pretty significant SBA lender in our state. And we are now struggling we have a very comprehensive credit memo, and we're trying to determine if we're going to go to a SBA specific. And it looks like a majority of our people do have a SBA specific credit memo. And that's good, because SBA expects the credit memo, the loan authorization, to match up in a variety of ways. And if you have an SBA specific one, you're going to touch base with those key eligibility and closing issues that SBA would look at if they reviewed the file, or if you had a loan default and had to present a purchase demand kit and they took a look at the credit memo. If you have an SBA specific one, you're going to be in good shape. Now, for those who don't, just make sure that you touch base with those key elements in the credit memo that SBA will look for.
And is your bank a delegated lender? Why are you asking this, Lance?
Primarily, Joseph, because delegated lenders create their own loan authorizations. And SBA, in the case of an express loan, when I ran the Little Rock Commercial Loan Servicing Center, we never saw an express loan authorization unless the loan was in default and a purchase demand kit was presented. So there is some significant responsibility on the part of the SBA lender to make sure you get the loan authorization created correctly. In the case of a PLP loan, you'll be sending a copy of that loan authorization to the SBA after the loan is closed.
It looks like all of our folks are delegated. And the last one, how many of your SBA loans are closed exactly as the SBA loan authorization states, without loan authorization changes?
Well, and again, out of curiosity, I know that I've worked on a large number of SBA loans. I would say at least 80% of mine do require loan authorization change approvals, and I was just curious how our group does in terms of being able to close. Now, good underwriting And good origination procedures is going to help to minimize the number of loan authorization changes, but I was just curious how our group does.
And we're pretty much all over the board, so.
Well, it looks like a number have 0 changes, and then nobody in the less than 5 category. But probably what that indicates is we have some good, strong, active SBA lenders in this class.
Great. Mike, can you go ahead and try and show the next slide? Let's go over the email question. Okay. We're not seeing it, so. Lance, are you seeing it?
Go ahead. No, I'm not. Go ahead and read the question.
Okay,
And then
I'll just go ahead and read it. We're currently working on a 7A loan in the amount of $260,000. Use of proceeds will be as follows. 120 for the real estate building, 18 for property improvements, 39 for working capital, 44 for inventory, 39 for equipment, furniture, and fixtures. His question is, I would like to structure this new request with either blended maturity or perhaps an accelerated payment for the first 5 years for all the proceeds that are not real estate related, and put the real estate portion on a 20-year amortization. How or what recommendations do you have on this structure? Oh, there we go. It's up. Additionally, I would like to provide approximately 3 to 6 months of interest only because it is a startup. Is this possible?
certainly in this particular case, if I were approaching the loan with this use of proceeds, I probably would break it up into 2 loans. I mean, there's 2 options. You can break it up into 2 loans and do the real estate building and property improvements in 1 loan of $138,000, and you could amortize that on 20 or up to 25 years. You could do it as an express loan, or you could do it as a 7A loan if you wanted a 75% guarantee. And then you could put the working capital, inventory, equipment, and furniture and fixtures in a second loan. Looks like it'd be about $112,000, and that loan could be amortized up to 7 years. In this particular case, they indicated 5 years. So one way to accomplish it would be to split the loans up, do 2 separate loans, one for the real estate and improvements, one for the working capital, inventory, and equipment. Do the real estate on a 20 to 25-year amortization, and do the working capital, inventory, equipment, furniture, and fixtures on a 5 to 7-year amortization. The other thing you could do is do it all as one piece, $260,000, do a blended maturity, and my recommendation on this particular case is probably a 15 to 17-year maturity. Second part of the question is, can we do 3 to 6 months of interest only? And the answer to that question is absolutely. You just need to present, whether you're doing it as an express or doing it as a 7A loan through SBA 1. When you get to the structure part, express allows you to enter an interest-only period, as well as the SBA 1 format will allow you to enter an interest-only period. So the possibility of providing 3 to 6 months of interest-only payments and then amortizing the loan, let's just take let's say you did it in 2 pieces. $138,000 loan for real estate on a 20-year amortization with 6 months of interest only, and then the balance amortized on 19.5 years. In the case of the working capital, inventory, and equipment loan, you could also do an interest-only period for that. You could do a 6-month interest only and then amortize the remaining balance on, a 6.5-year period, or if you're doing a 5-year, you could do it on a 4.5-year period. But that, like I said, I see it being 2 ways. You could either split it up into 2 separate loans, or you could do it all as one piece and use a blended maturity. And yes, the interest-only period is absolutely possible.
And Tony, I know you're online and this was your question, and I know it's a long answer. If you want to raise your hand and ask any further questions or follow-up questions, you can email me or Lance, and we'll get that handled today. So let's talk about the recap for week 2. We're having difficulties with.
Week 2, we were talking about the SBA loan authorization, the SBA loan authorization wizard. Primarily, the loan authorization wizard is going to come into play when you're doing PLP loans. If you submit through GP, like the most recent one I did, I used SBA 1. By the way, for those of you using SBA 1, I do have some results to offer up on timing. I think a lot of people have some curiosity as to how long it takes, because with SBA 1, your application's supposed to go to the front of the list. I had an application that I submitted in mid-December. There actually was an exception to policy issue that we had to get approved, and we went from submission to receipt of approval and loan authorization in 29 days, which I think is exceptional. So SBA certainly delivered in this particular instance on its brand promise that if you use SBA 1, it's going to be a quicker process. But we talked about the loan authorization in week 2, talked about use of proceeds. It's very important to understand that you submit a use of proceeds when you create your authorization, whether you create your own if you're a PLP lender or express lender, or you get one back on a GP loan, that the use of proceeds and the actual disbursements match up. If you have any changes, you want to make sure and get those approved. Also, we talked about loan authorization change requests and how to get those approved. So very important areas of properly closing an SBA loan. Now in week 3, we talk about the lender's form, the SBA form 1920, and we also cover the credit elsewhere rule. The form 1920 does cover most of the credit elsewhere questions, but I do recommend that in closing your loan you put a memorandum in file that indicates what qualifies this loan as meeting the credit elsewhere rule. And we do spend some time covering the form 1920 and how it should match up with your credit memo. Earlier I was talking about the importance of a credit memo, and if you have an SBA specific memo, you can certainly develop it in a way that the credit memo, the SBA lender's form, which is the SBA form 1920, and the loan authorization should have a good smooth flow from one item to the next, and similar information in each area. So another very important week, the 1920, getting it properly prepared is an important part of a good SBA loan closing.
Hey, thanks, Lance. Sorry about all those technical issues. We have about half the class is completed up to date through week 2. We will have the week 3 videos up either tonight or early Monday morning. You will get a notification email as usual. Look forward to it next week. If there's any further questions.
Joseph, I'd just like to encourage our participants, be thinking of questions you might have for next week's office hours, next Friday. Make sure and submit them to Joseph or I, Lance at ColemanReport.com and Joseph at ColemanReport.com. It makes office hours certainly, there's a great question today about structuring an SBA loan, and would love to see more good questions like that as we go forward in this class.
Right. And we'll be back next week on Friday with Bob and Lance, and have a good weekend, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take